Most people don't think about that, to get in there and really get into the weeds and figure out who's buying in the areas. Most people are just pulling that list, and then if it's there, it's there. If not, they cancel it. They don't go that extra level. And oftentimes we find a lot of success in that by taking that extra one or two steps just to double check. Okay, everybody, I want to welcome you to another episode of Smart Talk with REIPrintMail. My name is Scott Snofke. I'm a direct mail marketing coach here. And today I have a special guest with Exclusive Equity Group is Nicole. Nicole works and runs the operation, the behind the scenes. We're going to take an in-depth look at what it looks like to be the manager of a good-sized team and how to scale and grow that team today. So welcome, Nicole. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you jumping on with me today. And today we're going to kind of, like I said, we're going to take a look into, pull a couple layers of the onion back and look at how you've built your team, where you found success and where you found failure. So getting started in that, how long have you been with Exclusive Equity Group?
I think I've been there about a little over a year now.
Gotcha. And what did it look like when you first started? Was it, pretty organized, or would you say that it was kind of all over the place?
It was a mess. So when I first started, I was going to come in to be acquisitions. When I got in there, we used REI Print. There was no system really in place. I kind of was just like, I don't know who to call because I think men kind of work a little bit differently than women. They're less organized in my personal opinion. So I got in there and everyone's just kind of free for all calling. So I kind of just went in and started setting things up to where it made sense and we weren't all calling the same person, and it just kind of worked out that way.
What was your first move then as far as, setting up that system to create that structure?
Just building the CRM out. So we wanted to make sure we built the CRM out. When we built the CRM, we actually put different cities, so it kind of started to make more sense. And then I had each rep work a pipeline versus just coming in and calling everybody.
Gotcha. So you created a couple of organizational tools, and like you're saying, us men are kind of both feet on the gas, go after the next shiny lead in that. So we do create a lot of structure. That's why it works well together. In creating that structure, once you've subdivided the phone calls and created that, how did you go and find new employees? How quickly did you scale the amount of people inside of your business?
So at first, I think we scaled a little bit too quickly because we started getting a bunch of partners. We started setting everything up. We had probably at one point in time, like 6 or 7 VAs that were working for us. We had a couple Americans that we tried out as well. And it just didn't work out because not all the training was there and we were kind of skipping a step in the middle there. And then once we kind of scaled back and shortened the team a little bit and just really dialed into the training and doing more like one-on-one stuff, listening to calls, it ended up being a little bit better. So what we do now is we have a team of 3 VAs and then Travis himself calls and closes. So the 2 VAs, they sit there and call all day long. And what they do is they just kind of set appointments, basically. They make sure that they want to be called. They make sure that they want an offer. We have them straight offer at like 50% just to see, or offer payments. So when our closer VA is calling, they already know that they're going to get a lower offer. So it just kind of works a little bit better that way.
So you've, through trial and error, setting up the systems and processes, you just kind of looked at that and go, okay, this is where we're getting our deals from. This is how we want to set up the call. And then you created that training, held them accountable for that training to live inside of that. And then once they found that success inside of that talk track, you guys were getting more qualified leads and creating more efficiencies is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it just depends on lead source as well. But we had our most success with actually REIPrintMail. I think it was like 122% return or something. I'd have to look at the number for sure, but we had a huge success with that, and we still have a plethora of leads that we actually call daily from those. So we're still getting leads from there, and we haven't mailed in, I don't know.
Since October. And that's the beauty of direct mail is it has a long-term play. It stays, they hang it up on their refrigerator, they put it in the junk mail, and they'll call 6 months or a year later. So they continues to bring inbound calls in for over a long period of time. That's what I love about it. It's usually the most consistent in there, but you can be overwhelmed with it if you turn it on too much. So you have to find that happy medium in there.
I would say we probably have 2,000 REIPrintMail leads. Like we have a ton. Like even after throwing them into like a dead pile, because the way that I have the CRM set up, it's a pipeline, and it has like dead, initial call, follow-up, long-term follow-up, contract sent. So it just is really organized in there. So even the ones that are even in the dead pile, we won't put them in dead until they tell us, take them off the list, or I don't have a house to sell. And we find that those people come back as well.
So talking about follow-up program, what are you guys currently using as follow-up? What's your systems and processes there as far as after the initial first contact and they've decided that they're not ready to sell or the numbers didn't quite work out? How are you retargeting these people?
So we have it set up to where when somebody calls in and it goes into an initial call, it just goes straight to the pipeline. When that number is hooked up, it's created a tag, so it goes straight to that person's pipeline. So when it goes to that person's pipeline, it automatically sends them a voice message, and it's like, hey, this is Travis. I want to leave you, or I'm going to offer you something, call me back. And then it sends them a text right after. So it automatically is following up with them. And then every single pipeline stage has auto text sent in there as well. So every single stage they're getting hit. I think it's once a week or once every 3 or 4 days, depending on which stage they're in, just so they stay fresh and we stay top of mind.
Yeah. So you're hitting them with a texting drip campaign, like a follow-up. Is there any AI in that, or is it all pretty much set it and forget it?
No, there's no AI in it. We have looked into setting up the AI with it. I just haven't found like a super crazy success with that, because you can kind of tell when you're talking to an AI, and it just hasn't been like super personable. But the way that we have the actual automation set up, I went through and I created all those. So me and Travis sat down and we decided, hey, what should we say at this point in time? If they don't reply, what should we say? If they do reply, it takes them out of that pipeline. So say they're in a long-term follow-up, which means that they don't want to sell yet, but maybe at some point in time they want to sell. If they reply to that pipeline and they reply to that text message, it puts them immediately into the warm leads. So they know hey, this is replying and they're active, so we need to hit those first.
Right. So and then what's a typical conversation when you're trying to reach back out to them? What's one of the text messages that you created to give the listeners a quick glimpse into what generates that interaction the best? What did you guys find to do with?
Usually things that are just shorter. We don't ever send more than like 2 sentences. If we do, we separate them in text messages so it's easier to read. And it could just be like, hey, I know you wanted to sell at one point in time. Are you interested? And we also have to be really careful with the text messages, because it'll block a lot of messages. So if you put like, you want a cash offer, and then it'll come back as spam or something. So we have to be really careful with the wording as well on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. In this day and age, you don't want to get caught on that. I know we had a friend of ours inside of the boardroom mastermind that I think got dinged for about $1 million lawsuit on that, which is also good for our industry, because a lot of people stepped away from SMS and then came to direct mail and are generating a really good response in that area. So once you've gotten them under contract, what's your disposition strategy for the most part to help some of our listeners out?
It really depends on the area. I always hit Facebook groups, marketplace. Then I'll also we had Investor List for a long time. We were using it. I didn't find a whole lot of success on there. Like, we had buyers that were on there, but we didn't pay for the cartel mode. So we didn't really get to that far in there. But a lot of it is just like, I'll have a VA skip trace the area. We'll look for cash buyers on PropStream.
REI Smart Data.
Smart Data. We've had you send us lists before as well, and we've used those lists. So we'll have somebody skip trace them, and then we'll send out a mass text there too. So like my mass text will be like, hey, are you still buying in this area? Or are you looking for a flip in this area? Things like that. I get text messages because I'm a real estate agent in Arizona. I get text messages all day long like that. So I kind of see like what does and doesn't work and what like makes me want to reply. So we just kind of gear it towards that. And we usually have a lot of success. I think it's a little bit easier on the dispo side than the acquisition side, because they're actively looking for properties versus like you're bugging someone to sell their house, That's a little bit easier in my opinion. But yeah, we just send text messages. Most of my conversations are all done through text. I hardly have to call people, to be honest with you. And I know I probably should, but I find Facebook, LLCs, things like that.
Gotcha. And then inside of the dispo side, I know you guys mostly are doing either subject to novations or you're doing subject twos for your buy and holds. What are you finding currently in the market that you're finding your best success on as far as dispo? Are you wholesaling, or where are you finding your best spreads?
I would say our novations are probably our best spreads. It gets a little tricky because you're connecting the end buyer to the seller at some point in time, and then you kind of have to explain the difference in amount. Say probably the novations. We get some success in wholesale in wholesaling as well. Like we had one in Arkansas that we just had, which I don't recommend Arkansas. It's a really tough market, super tough market, but we just had one. We had it locked up for $25K, and I was ready to cancel the deal because I was just like, wow, this house is really ugly. Like, no one's going to buy this. But I saw that someone had done a flip right around on the same street. So like I found his LLC, reached out to him, couldn't find his number anywhere, but I found him on Facebook. And like 4 days later, he messaged me back, and he wasn't the buyer. He's just the contractor, but he connected us with the buyer. And now we're able to negotiate back with the seller. We went from $25K to $15K, and they're going to buy it for $30.
Nice. Yeah, it also often helps to almost reverse engineer the problem of, it's like, okay, running comps, we see this, we found that, and the way you did that is phenomenal. Most people don't think about that, to get in there and really get into the weeds and figure out who's buying in the areas. Most people are just pulling that list, and then if it's there, it's there. If not, they cancel it. They don't go that extra level. And oftentimes we find a lot of success in that by taking that extra 1 or 2 steps just to double check. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I check the whole neighborhood. Like every time we have a house, I'll see what houses have flipped around. I'll talk to the neighbors. I'll do the whole 9 yards with the area just to see what's happening. Because sometimes it might be a nice house, but maybe it's in the middle of nowhere, so no one's actually buying over there.
Right. Nobody's stopped to look or something. That makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate your time today. It's been very insightful to look into the operation side of things. I don't often get to talk this conversation as much as I get to talk the lead flow. So this was entertaining and very knowledgeable for myself and what I do. So Nicole, again, thank you for having me. Thanks for jumping on with me today. If everybody liked the information that Nicole brought to us to the table today, make sure you like and follow, subscribe, REIPrintMail.com on YouTube and anywhere else you see it. So thanks again, Nicole. We'll talk to you later.